This mixer can mix the 3 channels together in various ways. We have the different volume controls for the mixer. However, that's not the mic level. Microphones output a very, very small signal level, so they need to be amplified using a high-quality amplifier to line level. To do that, you go through what's called a microphone preamp, and this recorder has pretty good mic preamps in it, and there are 3 of them. There's a depressible knob. So it's kind of hard to see. Let me pick this up a little higher. These are really handy. So this knob here can be pushed in or out. So you push it out to adjust your mic level. And then once you have your mic level set, you can push that in so you don't accidentally bump it. We're going to go over microphone level setting in a minute as well, as soon as I run you through the basics of the gear. Okay, so there are 3 microphone preamps and 3 mixer knobs. The mixer knobs have a little switch underneath that says LCR. So guess what? If you put the switch on L on mixer knob 1, it goes to which channel do you think? Left channel, yeah. On the right, to the right channel. Center will go to both channels. Pretty straightforward. Also, you'll see on each of these channels a switch that says, has a little line, a little thing like that, and it says 80 or 160. That is the high pass or low cut filter that you were talking about. 80 hertz is a really low filter. That's going to be mostly appropriate. That's going to maintain the low end of a voice, but will roll off the very bottom frequencies of a rumble going by or something like that. 160 is quite a bit higher. 160 cuts into most people's voice range, but sometimes if you have a really windy day or something that's really, really rumbly around, you might need to use the 160 filter and sacrifice some of the low end of the voice. Or if you're in a very, very boomy room, you might actually get the voice sounding more normal by putting the filter on. Generally speaking, when you're recording dialogue, you'll want to start with the 80 hertz filter on. You almost never want it without a filter. Too much rumble, just from handling noise, background noise, the air conditioning that's happening in here would all be gone when you import the audio. Okay, so you adjust your levels of the mix over here, send it to left, center, or right as you want. Have your metering over here. And then there are some metering options, which we'll go over in a minute, and some listening options as well. Also, there is a depressible headphone volume control right here for the mixer. Okay. On the other side of the unit are some battery connections and output jacks. They're line level analog audio outputs. Speaking of battery connections, this entire pack is powered by one battery, and it goes to each device. I'll show you that battery. Pull this out. Okay, so this is just a heavy-duty battery pack. This should probably last you most of the day with this gear. Always have a second battery pack on hand just to be sure, of course. But this is pretty high-powered. It just fits into this battery connector here. Just jam it in there, put it in the box or in the bag, zip it up. That goes to a little battery distribution hub that's inside here. I don't want to take it out because it's really hard to get in and out. But basically it's a little thing that takes the main battery power and sends it out to all the external devices. So everything is powered from one main device, which is very, very handy rather than having to worry about the battery in 3 different devices running out at the same time. Okay, so the sound comes out of the mixer, and then we'll go to our Sound Devices 702T field recorder. This is a really, really great unit. I've done high-end classical records with Grammy-winning producers using this recorder. It's really, really nice. It's a 2-channel recorder, records the left and right channel. It does have its own mic preamps, but we don't want to use those since we're using the mixer here. We'll want to go and set the inputs to be line level input. Notice I said this is the 702T. The T indicates that it's a time code recorder. And that's very, very important for our dual system, dual process sound to keep time code between all devices. So in our case, we're going to use this as our master time code generator, and everything is basically going to follow the time code of this unit. And this unit has a lot of features in it. There's a lot of menu items, but really it's pretty straightforward. It does so many things, a lot of stuff you don't need to worry about, but a few things you do need to worry about. We're going to go over all those as well. I'll just go over the connections on this real fast. There's a ton of connections on it. There's all kinds of word clock, digital audio ins and outs. There's a time code in and out, which we need to know about. Battery in, a headphone volume control. On this side, we have, thank you, our inputs. They are switchable between mic and line level. We want to make sure it's on line level since we're coming off of the mixer at line level. If we were to put this in mic level, it would distort the input to this recorder very, very much. It would be very bad. Okay, so we have this set to line level. There's a couple of extra inputs there. And that is the basics of this so far. At this point, are there any questions about the gear? Yes?
When would you use the mic level?
Well, you would use the mic level if you were using this as a standalone recorder, which you could easily do. In this case, we have a high quality mixer, so we don't necessarily need to do that. If, however, you were in a situation where, say, the mixer failed to work, you could just unplug the mic level, or sorry, the inputs here, set it to mic level, and plug your mics directly into the 702T, and it would work exactly the same. Although you'd have to still adjust your input levels using this, which I'll go over too. But it does only have 2 inputs. Yes?
Sorry,
you first.
I was curious if, how many of these do we have available for us for when we're going out?
3.
Total? 3? Awesome.
Yeah, which is
That's
great.
amazing.
Yeah, it is great. And just so you know, it is possible to synchronize all 3 of them together. It's somewhat complex and maybe a little more of an advanced thing, but it is possible to do that. Okay.
How many batteries do we have per unit?
That's a good question. 2 batteries per unit.
With a charger, they can go out on shoots too.
Great.
That's my question, so, okay, thank you.
Oh, sure. I think that these batteries, from what I can tell, I imagine one would last all day, maybe at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Especially with these are really low power devices.
Right.
But you never know.
Yeah, I'm teaching them to stay in the never know area.
Absolutely.
Is it possible to get 2 shotguns, or would you have to actually have 2 kits?
You have to have 2 kits to get 2 shotguns. Unless you checked out a secondary shotgun from the lab, which
Right.
is of a lesser quality.
Right. That's so if I have my own Sennheiser and we're able, if I have a softy mountain, we just check out a boom, and I have XLR cables, we can have 2 booms on this particular
Absolutely.
unit.
You could actually have 3. even.
Yeah, that's what you're thinking, right? Okay, great.
Absolutely.
Could you
Yes.
record something to the mixer and the recorder?
No, the mixer doesn't record anything. It just mixes
Well, yeah,
the
but
signals.
when it goes through, like, could I somehow make it so that I could record 4 things? in one?
Well, yeah, technically you could.
Okay.
You could have 3 channels going into the mixer, mixed down to 1 channel. Then you could put
Okay.
another microphone and say into the right channel of the sound device's recorder.
So you'd be bouncing.
Yeah.
That's like
Yeah.
that's like in music.
Okay.
The delicate balance there is if your levels are off when you are doing those 3 to 1, you're in trouble. You're never going to be able to correct that. Okay, so other questions about it so far? All right.
I have a question.
Yes.
What's the difference between single process and dual process?
So single process sound would be if the microphone's plugged directly into the camera, which can work fine, sort of, except the camera controls often have inferior audio abilities. Some of them have almost no audio ability at all. other than being able to record a very, very basic signal. And very few cameras have more than 2 inputs, just a left and a right input. Most at this point do offer phantom power, some older ones don't. But generally speaking, you want to avoid the camera audio. Maybe have it as a backup, but generally doesn't sound quite good. Yeah.
I have a question regarding the time code, actually. So why are we doing like a time code sync instead of just syncing it manually?
Oh, that's a great
later?
question. I'm very glad you asked that because being able to sync it manually later, it is possible, but it's so tedious and it's never accurate. You can get close. The thing is, cameras work at 24 frames per second. Audio is sampled at 48,000 essentially frames per second. So when you're trying to line up audio and video, the video is only going to be frame accurate. So you can be off by half a frame with the audio and not really be sure of it, and that's a problem. But the bigger problem is just the tediousness of manually aligning audio and video. For example,
Especially if you shoot, I mean, you're shooting a short film, but even shooting a short film and working 5 to 7 days of clips, you're gonna have so much information. So having it with time code synced together, it'll save you like endless hours.
But when you sync with time code, when you go into post, you still have to set them, or is it going to magically, electronically?
it's not quite
do
magic,
something?
but it's awful close. That's certainly something we can talk about. Maybe, I don't know, when you get into post-production audio and importing clips,
Right,
but I'll tell you what it can do. In Premiere, it's a little bit tricky to time align things, but basically, is Premiere the primary editor you'll be using?
Well,
Or
it seems so.
depends?
Yeah,
Okay.
it seems so.
Well, there's all kinds of different programs, of course, and they all work a little bit differently. In Premiere, as an example, you can go into the, what's the window called? The project window, and you have clip 1A and the audio that goes with clip 1A. You shift-click both of them, or Apple-click both of them, whatever, so they're both highlighted. You can go to the clip menu and hit synchronize and merge. Boom, done. You could alternately drag the video clip onto the timeline, drag the audio clip anywhere on the timeline, select the two, right-click, synchronize, they line up perfectly. No hassle, no thinking about it. And I understand that some of you work with the program called Pluralize. Have any of you worked with that? Okay. Pluralize is a third-party program that can do batch processing of all those files. So you load all your video files in, all of your audio files in, and hit a button, and they lock together. And then they act as one. Other programs work differently. Pro Tools works differently. Avid Media Composer works a little bit differently, but they all can synchronize with so little effort, time code. And just, you don't have to think about it. Imagine having to manually align 400 clips. You'd spend a day aligning clips. Horrible. I bet all of you have done that at some point. The other thing about that is, what if you have, let's say you're doing 2 cameras for whatever reason, and maybe the camera doesn't have a mic, or maybe the audio didn't get recorded onto the camera. Your aligning it is going to be purely visual. You're just going to have to line it up as opposed to aligning it to a pre-existing audio track. So it can be very, very, very tricky to do. The time code is great for that, and be perfect for you. Yes?
How do you sync that to the camera?
We're going to go over that in just a little bit.
Okay.
That is not that hard, but it's a process that you have to go through each time. Was there another question?
I was just gonna ask, what do you recommend for shooting at 59.974?
As far as,
Frame rate.
that is kind of a tough question. This one won't send out 59.974 frame, but
So do it manually for syncing?
no. You should be able to set it up to output 23.976 and just let the camera accept time code at that frame rate and still shoot it at a different rate. I don't know if these cameras are capable of that. The cameras are, that's out of my range.
This
So-
camera actually will shoot at like 60 frames per second.
Mhm.
And what that does for you guys is it helps you with either resolution or it helps you also with slow motion. You know, if you're trying to somehow get that 120 frames, that, you know, that look, that's one of the ways you can do it here. But you can't ever, even with film, you don't sync sound with, you know, slow motion. So that would be an ADR moment. You know, if like someone falls and it's a comedy and you go, oh, you know, it's like, you'll get that and you just have to manipulate that in post.
Sure. Maybe we can try and experiment with that later on. Or maybe next week I'll try something and see if we can find a clever way to make that work as well. Okay, so that's the basics. Now, let's go over some of the more specifics about this recorder in particular. I think we probably need to gather around a little bit closer so everybody can see this. It's a tiny screen. Let me put it on this cart over here. And,
That card actually smells good too.
all right.
There's cinnamon on it.
Why is there so much?
It just smells
Is that why someone brought it in, or
I
is it
did.
just here? Oh.
I just think it's cool.
Have a distinctive.
Oh, that was a comment for me.
Mind your way.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't mean to be the
Yeah.
exact
Okay,
same as you.
maybe a few people will need to sit on the floor while we do this. I'll try and bring it up here so everybody can see.
Let's make sure you got it.
Yeah, Colin, can you move over on the other side of Robbie?
What? Oh, okay.
All right.
You got it?
Yep.
Thanks, man.
Okay, so here we have our recorder. I'm just gonna go ahead and power it on. And it's kind of hard for me to see the menu, so